Mike, let's start with you. How many hotels do you currently have, Mike?
So we have 34, and we have one in Belgrade in London, so I can say international. But we also have 2 in development in Mexico. So we got, so we're going to get more and more in the international concerns.
So you went from Hyatt to there. So tell me about the transition there from going from something as huge as Hyatt to that.
Yeah, I guess I should have mentioned that in my background. So yeah, I have been in the industry for not a little bit longer than Greg. Feels like forever, but yeah, for a good 6 years now. So I worked at a much smaller hotel chain called Hyatt, and I led IT for them. And I got to tell you, you know, what's neat about having a startup is it's all about setting the table and building an ecosystem of the partners and players that you really want to build upon. And you can do it at a speed of, you got the speed and agility you need to succeed in what I think is the next paradigm of the organization. I think a lot of you have heard me discuss about this new model of IT called broker, integrate, and orchestrate, right? Which is much different than the old plan, build, run. Because I don't think, you know, as you guys, as being vendors, there's different problems and stuff that you're gonna have to solve. But I want you to solve them. I shouldn't be the one coding and solving, right? Because you have the solution. And I enlist your help in my ecosystem to solve those problems. Make sense?
And Greg, how many hotels do you have? And talk to us about standardization across those hotels.
I knew you said you wouldn't talk about that. So we have 60 hotels nationwide. We're expanding at a rate of about 25% a year. We're going to double in size over the next 3 years, so obviously a big concern of mine. And the standardization piece is critical because as we acquire hotels, I fortunately get to acquire everything they already have. And so I have a zillion points of integration that are just driving me crazy. So part of my focus is to standardize on a set of products. Now, we've done our, if you call our guest journey, which starts from pre-arrival all the way through completion. And if I sit down and look at it, it's about 16 different software companies and $1 bazillion of integration fees. And so I'm really focusing on getting a standard set of applications, standard infrastructure in place so that I don't have to piecemeal it together. I've got huge issues with point solutions, individual integrations and stuff. I'm looking for the vendor community to come together and say, we'll work as partners with each other, and you may not be my choice for a CRS, but I want you for a CRM, or I want you for this, and eventually I might change out, but I'm not going to change everything overnight, so I need everything to work together. And if anything I can ask for, that's a push I'm going to be, when I talk to you all about, is componentization is how I'd call it, of being able to work with your partner and be able to integrate for us so that, again, I don't have a development shop either. I'm depending on you to build the products that work together so that I don't have to, but I can orchestrate and architect what my environment is and how it works. And so that's my plea, if anything, to this. So, Rich, does that help?
Helped a lot. And Paige, how about you? With all the hotels you guys have, how do you standardize across all those?
So probably standardization is our biggest challenge, but something we have to do, right? So within the Americas, which is I'm responsible for, it's 3,300 hotels, globally over 3,600. And the global piece is growing, you know, that is where our big growth engine is right now. And so our ability to have products and services go across that ecosystem, the only way we can do that is with standardization. And so it is a real critical part, and it's something that we're spending a lot of time on right now, getting systems in place. We're actually, I think some of you know, we've gone from 19 PMS systems over the last 10, 15 years. We'll be actually down to 1 PMS system here in the next 3 years, and that just gives us, the standardization gives us flexibility. And it gives us an opportunity to really do things fundamentally differently because we know what we're dealing with in every single hotel. It's configured the same. The endpoints are the same. And then we're able to bring in all that creativity that many of you can help us with in driving out different services that fundamentally change the way we do business. So for us, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
And
And Rich, hold on a second. As far as standardization, I want people to recognize that that's not like a cookie cutter solution for every single hotel, right? So we have resorts in our portfolio. They're going to look a whole lot different than, you know, well, everything looks different than the Phoenix Hotel, but yeah. So if you guys are ever in the Mission District, believe me, the Phoenix Hotel is the weirdest place that that I've ever seen in my life. But anyways, so yeah, it's one of those things that when we say standardize, it's not the same thing. It's just that they work together, right? That within the context of that ecosystem, things play very nicely together, right? I mean, it's akin to an episode of Big Love. We need all you guys to kind of work together, right? And sometimes it just doesn't feel that way, but we need that kind of harmonious relationship over time, and I know it's hard.
Can somebody hug Mike Blake for me? Well, Mike stole my thunder because what I was about to say is Omni is 56 hotels, but exactly what Mike said. We are broken up into 3 very distinct hotel types. The one we're sitting in is one of our core hotels. Downtown urban box, some meeting room space, 3-meal restaurant, maybe fine dining. Caters to exactly what you guys are, the group business. Small groups though. Then we have convention hotels, which we got into about 10 years ago. Huge boxes, city of Dallas, Nashville, San Diego. Very, very different type of technologies put into those hotels compared to core hotels. But as Mike said, there's some standardization among them, and there's some that's not. And then the last one we got into about 5 years ago was resorts. And last year with our major acquisition of KSL's 6 great, wonderful resorts, we got very, very deep into the resort business. And one of the hardest things is certainly when we take over a hotel, and Paige and I were talking about this last night, it is my opportunity to say to everybody, here's the systems I want to put in, and here's the cost behind it. And 90% of the time, I have the other departments coming to me because IT gets to drive this, which is very nice in our company, saying, hey, here are the systems we want you to put in, and here are the costs. And that's our opportunity to standardize. And if we don't do it at that point in time, it's probably not going to happen. Now, that doesn't always mean that's approved, but that's our goal, is to get our systems in. And I know from a vendor community that's very hard because certainly for KSL, they had their vendors. Well, Omni has their vendors. And at the end of the day, we went with predominantly, again, 90% Omni's vendors, because that's how Omni is successful with the standardization of our vendors that we have. And we feel we're successful, whether it's resorts, core hotels, or convention hotels, with those vendors. So you know, certainly from your aspect, I see it because you go, well, we were so successful before the acquisition, why are you changing out? But from our point of view, we're going, look, for us to be successful in Omni, here's what we have to do. We have to standardize across the platforms we feel are going to make us successful in how we sell our hotels. Real quickly, back to Paige, your 3,300 PMSs, real quick.
No, not 3,300 PMSs. I
One
would really
PMS,
I would be
3,300
really
installs.
gray.
That's going to be a lot of surveys, just for the record. And you're going to share that with Omni.
Go great.
You know, again, we all talk, and Greg and I actually very much compete against each other. Kimpton and JD Powers came into our Omni's group 2 years ago, and in their first year, they absolutely kicked our butt in customer service and won the JD Powers Award. And you know, Greg was new to hospital or to the hotel industry, and I joked with him the whole time that, hey, it's you're going to beat us. You're going to beat us. You guys have great customer service. We constantly watch what you guys do in your space. It's amazing customer service. And he said, you know, Richard, we didn't really take it serious. We more look at our internal measures, which we do too. But when they won JD Powers, all of a sudden, it became very important, and they obviously this year want to win again, and we're neck and neck, and it'll be very curious to see. But it just goes to show you that at the end of the day, it is about customer service, especially for Omni, where we're not 3,300 hotels. You get out of certain areas. If you go to Seattle and say Omni Hotels, people have no idea what an Omni Hotel is. But once they've been to it, and hopefully over the last couple of days, other than Rich, that you've been, seen the customer service, seen smiling faces, seen people greeting you in the hallways. It's those little things that we do. But, Greg, again, as we compete, tell us some of the things technology-wise that you've done to help with that customer service.
Well, that's always the big thing. We're, as Rich was nice enough to say, we finished #1 in JD Powers. We're also #1 in market metrics, and that's our forte. It's about the guests, it's about the service, and the technology we put in place, and I had to come to grips with this too, is enabling of that guest service. So the idea of being the cool techie hotel, not on the table for us. It's all about what's there to enable our guest service people to do a better job. So a lot of the stuff we're doing right now is around that guest profile. Who is that guest? How can we better engage with them? So I mean, we're putting in a new loyalty program. We're working with a vendor that's shall remain nameless today, but we're getting ready to roll that out early this summer, and it deals with the guest and everything about the guest. It is the central point of how we're going to act, to the point where you could have Google Glasses, where you can have a picture of the person as they come to the property and say, welcome. We want them to come to the front desk just so we can have the interaction with them, not to do the transactional pieces of the key and all that kind of stuff. You can have that, do the mobile check-in, all those kinds of things, but you want to have that interaction with that guest. That's what we specialize. That's why people come back to our hotels. Everybody here sells hotel rooms. Okay, but it's that interaction and why do they want to come back and be with you. And so being a boutique type hotel environment, every one of our hotels is a little bit different. You can't say go to this one, go to that one, and you'll get the same experience. They're all different experiences, and that's what a lot of the people love about that. The technology behind that really is invisible to the guest, and that's really what we've tried to play to. So the systems work. And one of the things I'm going to bring up here is that for like my type of situation, I can't be the R&D arm for a lot of companies. They'll come in and say, I got this new way to do things. Can we try it out in your hotel? No, you can't, because I'm an operational perspective. It's got to work every time. It's got to work the first time. And that's the type of situation I have to be in. So I'd love to have pilots, but I can't do that. So I look to you guys as vendors to come in to me with the complete solution, not something I have to build on and work around and do that kind of thing in the product. But the technology that we put in place is always got to be robust and 100% operational.
Can I tap on? So I guess one of the things that's very important to us as we work with many of you in the room is that I look at you as being in the hospitality industry with us. I don't look at you as not being part of that ecosystem or fabric of the hotel. And so my expectation is that when you're a partner with us, doing business with us, your focus on the guest is just as important as ours is. So if you think of all of you in this room here, if any of you had a problem with your stay, you'd be annoyed. You'd expect that service to be spot on. And that's the expectation we have when we partner with you and the services you deliver to us. If they're in our hotels, if they're in our data centers, it's really irrelevant where they are, but we expect you to have that same level of focus on your product so that ultimately it's the customer at the end who's receiving the full benefit of how all of those products and services come together. And I think many of you might be surprised if you go back into your own organizations and ask your sales teams and others, do they really understand the hospitality industry and their role in it? I think it's a really good exercise to help them understand that they're actually just as much a part of it as we are. And if you have that strong partnership, I think you'll find yourselves very successful in these relationships that you have with us as hoteliers. If you're lockstep in that, helping them make the #1 in JD Powers, that's huge. That's huge, and you're part of that. And so if you can be part of that and really grasp that level of engagement, I think you'll find yourselves tremendously successful.
And by the way, I'll take you beta 1. So if you guys got something new, I'll try them out. Don't worry about it. Because I do think that you guys in this room are my innovation engine, right? I mean, I align the ecosystem of partners because you guys are my innovation engine. I think I do something which is almost magical, is when I have an aggregate of innovation curves, right? So each one of my ecosystem partners has a curve of innovation, and they're additive. So I do think that as they start coming together, the innovation, it's exponential at times, because what I'm able to do is lever each one of these partners' tools in an effort to make my organization much better. Greg's absolutely right, it is seamless. But it's also about options, right? Because there's different people consume our product differently, right? Some people like to go to the front desk, chat it up and whatever. Some people just want to go to their door, right? Just give me the room. Let me enable my key from my phone and let me not even deal with it, right? Whereas some, they want the personal experience. So, but I would say that the technology should enable both, right? That entire spectrum, and it should be seamless. But we'll work with you. We know it's hard sometimes to figure out an ecosystem and work it through, but by all means, this is, we're kind of in it to win it with all of you guys, and I think I use just about everyone in the room almost, but anyways, it comes kind of to that highly fragmented, but we do have to orchestrate a little bit better amongst ourselves. So whether it's data passing through one system to another, different people within our organization consume data differently, and that's probably why a lot of you get, calls from me saying, hey, what the hell's going on here? But it's just sometimes it's not as seamless as it could be.
Mike, let's stay with you, but let's talk about a topic the four of us certainly do not like to talk about, and that would be security. In December, one of the, if not the largest breach happened with Target. It really rattled a lot of cages in everyone's industry. I come from the retail industry and still have a lot of tight ties there. And it was interesting to see their reaction to that, because just how massive it was, but then how it happened. That was just incredible how that happened. Absolutely incredible. And then shortly after that, unfortunately inside our own industry, there was a breach, and then it really hit home, especially at Omni, about what's technology doing to prevent this, but more importantly, what is technology along with our vendors doing to prevent this? And Mike, let's start with you on that topic. And I know it's a brutal topic, but if you would share your thoughts.
Yeah, so I think in this world, it's an arms race, right? Where who's going to be better, who's going to build the bigger walls, whatever. I always look at it as, from a hotelier perspective, we always say to ourselves, okay, what do we do when we're breached? What's that look like, right? If somebody is able to breach a hotel, which for some of you who have franchises and what have you, it is tough, because people are making decisions that, I always say, are people making decisions, do you want a new firewall or do you want a new front lobby, right? And so that's kind of the environment you guys are dealing with sometimes, because you have owners who may not make the investment which we think they should, right? So sometimes you'll put together a system or a process which you say, boy, you really need this, but the owner will say, I don't see any additional revenue, I don't see the customer impact, and then something like this happens, right? So we have, all of you know the problems with dealing with multiple owners and what have you, right? Being the CIO of Good Suggestions makes it kind of tough sometimes to push people in the direction of a strong security stance. Even right now, as we're going through this XP upgrade transition, it's crazy, because XP is so much part of the ecosystem, right? That, Microsoft basically says, okay, as of this date, we're not going to support it anymore. Well, PCI comes along, and if you want to actually be PCI compliant, you kind of got to get rid of your XP, right? Because 6.2 tells you you have to have a supported OS. Well, if Microsoft chooses not to support it, well, you could not be PCI compliant and still have XP in your credit card environment. So you got to get rid of that stuff. So, once again, it's kind of all working together. And I think some folks are very good at this and helping us pre-staging some equipment, getting it ready, knowing that the deadline's coming close, so they get their supply chain ready for us. Fantastic, right? But so once again, the message is communication, coordination, and absolutely, it's you know, security now is the best way to look at it is to start embedding it within the context of your solution, right? Encryption in flight, encryption at rest. I mean, there's things that we're just going to start taking for granted. I mean, I'm not going to know what a credit card is anymore because, you know, so we use a company called Merchant Link, right? So and we also use Magtech Swipe. So we're point-to-point encrypted. It's tokenized. You know, it takes my PMS and POS out of scope. Well, you know, and I still don't sleep well at night, right? Even though I know that if somebody was ever to breach any one of our hotels, all they'd get is a bunch of junk when it comes to credit cards. But there's still a lot of PII information, and there's still stuff out there that's of value. And, you know, a lot of us sit here and we wonder, you know, it's not if you're going to get breached, you are going to be breached. And you might possibly be breached already, right? Because a lot of the times when you deal with malware, it takes sometimes 230 to 240 days to recognize you've even been breached. That's pretty scary stuff. So you guys can all help us with that, right? I mean, better solutions, as tight as you can, working together. Because at the end of the day, the people that we're up against, very well capitalized. They got the best and the brightest working for them. I mean, they can afford it. And it's crazy the amount of money that's being made by these syndicates. I mean, it is just unbelievable. And it's seen as almost, you know, I'm not going to give the morals of society, but it doesn't. You know, a lot of people put it as a victimless crime, right? Which it absolutely isn't. So I think that's much longer than you wanted, but sorry guys.
You still haven't got your hug, so just keep going.
Can I just add a little bit of that? Because in my view, so being where we buy our applications and stuff, the key thing to me is you guys as partners is if you can show as much concern about security as we do. You know, we live it day in and day out. And I come back to, you know, we have a breach like Target. The first thing my CEO says is, what are our vendors doing about this, right? And I get on the phone, okay, what are we doing about this? In most cases, you guys are on top of it, which is great. And that's the kind of support that we need to have from you guys is that, yes, we know our vendors are on top of it. It's important to them as it is to us. And to keep showing that and to keep building and keep adjusting again to the arms races, as Mike said, is really just critical to the confidence level in you guys as vendors that we have to have.
So I guess the only other thing I would add, you know, total alignment and making sure that we've got good partnerships, making sure that your ecosystems are tight. So if you think about the Target situation where it was actually a third party, right, that came in probably pretty nonchalant, wasn't aware of what was going on. That can happen to anybody in this room. I mean, all of you open up your systems to suppliers as well, right? And so we just all need to be very rigorous in this space. And I would also suggest that all of us need to have security in this whole sense of this environment in the front side of any work we do. So you need that person at the table in the early stages of any project, whether you're bringing in a series of vendors to bring in design for you, whether you're designing on your own, that team has to be at the table from day one. And if they're not, then this problem will continue to get worse. It's here with us. We will never walk away from this problem. We just have to be smarter. And that's all we can do is be rigorous.
I agree with everything they said. You know, for us, we exactly what Paige just said. We as we've grown, we've seen that, hey, security has to play a bigger role. Security has to play a bigger role. We have risk management. We have security inside of technology. They're both heavily involved no matter what we do now. Everything we do, we get risk management involved, and we have our security. And even if it's e-commerce, which is in their own department, they want to do something, the first thing they're doing is contacting somebody in security from IT going, hey, we're about to start this project. You need to come up and listen to what we're proposing. So you're at the beginning and not caught up halfway through when decisions are already made. And it's been a huge adjustment for Omni as a company because you don't want to hear, and I don't want to hear it either, but they overrule me too, that when I say I want to do something, like, whoa, 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 we cannot do that, and here's why. I can't go, well, I'm the top technology person in the company, and we're going to do that now. I have to go, okay, you're right, we have to put security before this. And the other topic we don't like talking about, when Omni announced the acquisition of KSL's 6 great properties, we put out in the paper, we want everybody to know about it. Right after that, we went into a partnership with the King Eddie in Toronto. We were very excited about that. A month later, we put out another press release. We're opening our Nashville 800-room hotel. And within 90 days of all those press releases, we had tons of patent trolls at our door telling us how we were violating all these patents out there. And along with security, it to me is one of the most brutal things that I have to work on, because I just feel like I'm accomplishing nothing. I was on a call yesterday where I just had to listen to how I'm, basically breaking the law over this patent that was created 10 years ago that is so ambiguous that, sure, you can make it apply to what we're doing, but you can obviously make it not apply to what we're doing. But it's been something that over the last couple of years has crept up and has taken a ton of my time. It's brutal, but on the flip side, when we have to go to our vendors, the vendors have been wonderful. A lot of you in this room have helped us with those, and certainly, when at Omni, we don't like other people knowing what we're doing. So the legal department, the first thing they always say to me is, you can't tell anybody that we're going to be hit by this. Because my first thought is, well, I'm going to call Marriott, I'm going to call Starwood, I'm going to call Hyatt, I'm going to call Hilton and see, because they're bigger than me. They've obviously been hit by this. But I can't. The legal department always, you're not going to discuss this with anybody. But you can call your vendor and talk with them. Well, guess what? The vendor's going to talk to my peers that are, some of them are sitting with me here, and find out what they're doing to help with us with that. But it certainly has become an absolute pain, and every time I think they've gone away, we get hit with another one, and it's just so time consuming. But Paige, we'll start with you, because obviously you're one of the big boys that I love to talk about. So tell me about in your world.
I guess the only good news is my email will never ever be deleted. Right. But yeah, I mean, it's part of our business. I don't know what else to say. You really captured it all. It's the world we live in. It's the security world. It's the patent trolls. They're part of our life. We have to work very closely with our legal department, making sure that we're following their guidance on how we interact and work through it. But again, I just think, we need technology. It's part of our world. Our hotels cannot operate without it. So we've got to figure out how to work smarter in this world, how to work closely with all of you, making sure that you're doing the right things within your own companies to protect yourselves, which ultimately protects us as well. But it's here. I think it's just a matter of the business world we live in day to day. We just have to make sure we have good teams in place to work through it so that we can continue to do our work, which is take care of the guests when they check in the hotel.
I'm fortunate not to have had to live through this yet.
Oh, you didn't want to go there.
I will let you show me the way. No, we have not had that situation yet, so I can't comment on it, Mike.
Well, I think we're, by design and by strategy, we've built our ecosystem such that we are insulated by one layer behind, right? So I'm behind you guys as far as a lot of these patent trolls and stuff. I mean, I've, and maybe this is just a big chain type issue for right now, because yeah, I too am kind of in your camp right now, Greg, and maybe they'll get to us at some point. But then again, if they get to me, they're going to get to some of y'all in this room, right? Because I'm kind of in that. I put that corporate fig leaf in front of me, and that's kind of where you guys are insulating me from a lot of these trolls. I mean. So Peter, you're going down first, mate. We're kind of in this together, but you're right there in front of me. Exactly. But that's by design. That's our strategy. We don't choose to develop. We don't choose to put together things such that, we can put ourselves in that position.
The next topic, love talking about. We're going to lighten it up, and I'm going to give Paige all the credit for the next topic because she brought it up yesterday. And you know, honestly, we want to know what the vendors are doing when I just tell you what the topic is as well. And Mike, we're going to start with you because you're a startup. But as you look at the four of us, there's one thing we all have in common: we're not in our 20s, and we wonder what the next traveler is, that generation, and we all have our theories on it. But what about hiring them? Let's talk about that. And also, vendors, this is where we want to know what you're hiring to take care of the next generation of traveler. And Mike, since you open with, hey, I got to set the table, it's a startup. What did you guys do? I mean, you're the perfect setup for this.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is, we've made some big gambles on companies like Google, right? So traditionally, like when I was at Hyatt, we did 80,000 seats in Office 365. Well, first chance I got, new boutique, startup, little edgy, we went to Google Apps, right? So we're Gmail and everything. I mean, and you definitely saw a solution like that start to bifurcate through the organization. A lot of the kids that are just starting absolutely love it. That's what they had at university, and they absolutely love it. So, and why do they love it? Well, it's easy to use, has all the social elements, right? So, a lot of us look at Facebook as being, something that folks are wasting their time on, but some folks live on it, and some folks are even beyond Facebook. Now it's Instagram and a handful of other things that are taking over. And solutions have to start incorporating a lot of these social elements because that next generation coming up is a lot more social. And the funny thing is, and I say this all the time, maybe it just makes me feel good, is that the next generation, they don't know technology better, but they certainly don't know how to use it better, right? And you kind of try to figure out, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Well, it doesn't matter because those that are coming up, that are using and applying technology, need solutions that are kind of Google-esque in the way that it'll evolve quickly with them, right? The thing about Google is, even though they're behind with features and functions and some of their stuff, they're not that way anymore type of thing. I went to Google Summit, and then I went to a Microsoft one the following week, and I could compare and contrast, and it's interesting how they're playing the arms race too, but Google's catching up very quickly. And it's scary how quickly they adapt and that they change. And that's where you guys have to start looking at your own solutions, because the folks that are coming in, their expectations are, it's instant gratification, it's expectations that are well beyond what you guys can deliver on today. And you got to look at, all those things like Agile and whatever, your development processes, but your plan, build, run model has to accelerate much quicker.
I think you hit it right on as far as the younger folks. So I can say the age of our overall company has gone down since we hired a digital department. I don't think there's anybody in it over 30, and that's purposely done because that's the group that's going to lead us into the future of what social environment and the tools, the profiles, all that kind of stuff is going to look like. And that was the discussion we had at dinner. Okay, we'll say at dinner last night was about, how are you guys engaging those younger folks in the design and the feel of the products, because that new guest is going to want to see those. And so we're going to be coming to you guys asking you those questions. How do you know this is what's next, right? You're designing all these things. We're counting on you to design them. How are you getting your information? How are you getting your feedback? I have two 20-year-old daughters at home that I go home and listen to all the time and just take notes, because that's what I want to know about what they're going to want to do when they come stay in the hotels and stuff. And so that kind of change is happening. We see it twofold. You have the current generation that's tech savvy, if you want to say, and then you have the generation that doesn't know how do you live without it, right? That little box they all click on all the time, their mobile phone. That's going to become that's one of our key strategy is mobile first. Why? Because that's where everybody's going. We don't have, we don't have a choice. So we need you guys to be able to adopt that strategy and bring us the solutions that take that forward. And so we're hiring people like that. We're hoping you guys are hiring people like that and listening to those. We've got to all listen to those because we're not getting any younger, right? Okay.
Yeah, I think this is like a tsunami. I think this is just going to overwhelm us. I think in a really exciting way, quite frankly. I'll just share with you 2 quick stories in this space and why it really resonates with me. I don't know how many of you are involved in STEM in your communities, and if you're not, you should find some time. You'll just be amazed at what these high school students, junior high school students, are doing with technology. I saw one 7th grade class build a coffee buying app. Now, many of you will say, well, Paige, that's done. It's been done over and over again. Starbucks has it nailed. That wasn't the point. This was a group of 7th graders in their lab, in their junior high school, built this app, and it would have worked. I mean, if it had gone out into the marketplace, hands down, it would have worked. And, it's just amazing to me. They're very creative, and they don't necessarily know the bones, which is, I think, some of the dialogue here, right, is, that they know how to use it. They can put it together. They may not understand kind of all the underpinnings as well. But they have a real good sense of use, and I think that's certainly not where I grew up, right? So I can't, be honest, I have to think about it, right? I have to think about it, read about it, understand it, and pull it all together and be able to observe and listen well to understand what's coming at me. But the students today, they just live in this space, and I think it's something that all of us really need to participate in, because I think you'll just find some amazing things that you can bring into your company. And the other thing that really resonated with me was a couple of weeks ago was my son. He's 20 years old. And I asked him to take an old flat panel TV down to the basement for me. And I said, gee, Mike, I'm really sorry. Our house in the bedrooms, it's not all cabled for TV and such. And so I said, it's really a shame that you can't use that TV in your bedroom. You don't have any cable. And he said, hey, Mom, does that have an HDMI port on it? And I'm like, I have no idea if it has an HDMI port on it. And he flipped it over. He goes, oh, piece of cake. Flew in his Chromecast, set it up in his room, took out his tablet, loaded up his Netflix. He could care less. He's done. And it was, it's all these aha moments for me that it's not something that we're all going to sit around a table and think. We're not going to have these, well, maybe you all will. But I won't admit that I'll have them every day. And that's why I think you got to really pay attention, right? Listen closely. Take your kids to school. Listen to what they're talking about in the back seat. I think you'll be amazed at their creativity and how much of that you can pull into your own organizations. And that's where I think there's a lot of excitement coming our way, because these are the people who are going to create all these disruptive technologies that all of us feel so comfortable with right now, and they're going to find better ways to do it. And if we listen and adapt, we can incorporate that into our businesses. And that's, kind of this dialogue we were having. Are you listening? Are you out there? Because there's just some great things going on. Those were just 2 little things in my space, and I'm sure many of you have come across a lot of other things in your own communities. So I'd love to throw that out to the audience. I mean, are you all spending time in this space? Have you found any great successes? And maybe you don't want to talk about that after Bourbon Street. I don't know.
Somebody give Stuart a mic.
I think we have them all.
We have mics.
No, I think you guys hit really, really well on what we've kind of termed as consumerization of business applications in the hospitality environment. So for us, we've actually invested tens of millions of dollars in Manhattan. And I think some of you are aware of that. We actually created our own design firm in Chelsea, housed by about 85 resources today. And the focus of that is bringing non-software people, non-application people, non-hospitality people into an environment that is made up of fashion designers, graphic designers, led by the oldest guy on the team is 36 years old and a Pulitzer winner for design, right? And the idea is to really adjust the way we create software that changes the way in which you do your work, right? The idea is that how about making work act as the way you live, right? And the more and more that we see customers, Kimptons and Omnis, are very aggressive in their approach to what they're trying to accomplish and the guests that they're trying to relate to, right? So as well as the resources that they're starting to hire. So the more that we can make it simplistic, and the more that we can make it fun, and the more we can make it more like they do when they leave work, the ideas that can come and create from that in terms of changing workflows, changing the way you interact with the guests, changing the way your guests interact with you is exponentially different. So I'm really happy to hear you guys are all excited about that, because I think many of us in this room are heavily invested. I saw a couple applications in the last couple of weeks with some vendor partners here in the room that hit the exact same bullets that I'm talking about. Really changing the way that not only your resources but your customers interact with you through technology. So I think that's going to be something that's going to be a really drastic change over the next couple of years.
Yeah, and Stuart, let me add one more thing to that, because what we also need is you guys to design your solution so they're browser agnostic, right? Because the endpoint client strategy doesn't work anymore. I can't have a homogeneous environment with just PCs, right? I need Macs in my environment. I need Chrome boxes and Chromebooks. So being able to operate on something other than IE is a competitive advantage. And it is something that we're going to start demanding, that at least we have something in IE and Chrome. Chrome is the big one for us.
And I think you'll see with us and most of our partners that I know we work with on a regular basis, a lot of us moved away from IE. Obviously we support it because there's still a lot of clients who need it. But as you get into HTML5 and you get into different types of distribution of how you present the interaction with the system, you know, whether it's Firefox or Chrome, actually our number one supported interface that we look for is Chrome, right? Because there's things that you can do, and the security limitations and other limitations that occur sometimes with Microsoft is, you know, we've had, and nothing against Microsoft, we're a big partner of Microsoft, but, you know, the challenges that occur seem to be much more drastic when you're tied to one browser. But I think most of the people in here, and again, one of the ones, a partner product I saw in here, I was blown away with the ability to rendition a user interface on any device, real time, with no change, in a matter of moments, right? And it doesn't matter what browser. So I think you're going to see some of the leading vendors in this room really start to take that to the next level. So the other question is then how do we help get you guys to adopt at a more aggressive pace, right? You know, we've all invested fairly heavily, and I know it's a long move, right? But there's some things out in the marketplace today that are very different, that are proven, that really can adjust the way that you guys go to market, right? Much like some of you have done with your brands. You've changed the way you've gone to market. We've changed the way that we've delivered solutions in the marketplace and what you can do with them. So we're really encouraged about, you know, the excitement within your peer group to kind of really take that adoption to the next level.
Hi, I'm Lisa. It's actually not a question but a comment. Just going on the social theme and how you all are working. One thing that we're seeing, we're focused on, but it's not just my company, UMAPT, it's all of our peers who are really focusing on the social space, is how your guests are interacting socially while they're on property. So just a note about not connecting necessarily only through social media, only through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever it may be. It's really about engaging your guests on property through technology, where they're not just engaging with you, the hotelier, but they're engaging with everything around them. They're engaging with each other. They're engaging really socially, really leisurely to enhance that experience. And then, of course, your goal is to have them engage that experience live, share with other people, and have your brand become a part of that experience. So I would just encourage you, as you're looking for social solutions, to consider how you're engaging your guests socially on property as well.
Anybody want to add anything more to before I go on?
Well, I think Stuart had actually a question within the context of that, is how do we start consuming some of these great solutions that are out there? And I think what happens, Stuart, is since all of us are moving kind of at the speed of light, the downside and the upside of some of these technologies, as we're pulling them more and more off property, is the on and off ramps are becoming easier and easier to move off of, right? So things that, like an ERP system, which you wouldn't even contemplate moving off of, is actually an opportunity. And you can go ahead and start moving from one system to another because it's getting easier to do that. And there are going to be advantages in this arms race as things start looking better, and it's faster and it's easier, and the training component starts going down. You're going to see more and more adoption, I think, of different solutions. So people cannot get too comfortable with their market position, I think is a good way of saying that, because I will change. If we can't get to, that flexible, agile ecosystem, if core components aren't working holistically together in a way that we need to support our growth, we're going to change. So,
I guess the other challenge would be, how do you get that information to us? I think that's always a challenge, right? Because, we get inundated with emails, requests for meetings, lots of information. And, I think the challenge there is to figure out what our pain points are and take those components of your business and highlight them back to us, rather than trying to sell your whole business, right? Because some, I don't know, probably my peers as well, you get the person calling you saying, hey, can you give us 30 minutes? We want to tell you our story. Well, no, I don't have, but are you aware of a pain point I have, and you think you've got a great solution for me to see? That might be a very interesting item for me to give you, maybe 10 minutes on the phone to say, okay, help me, you do realize this is a pain point, show me how you've fixed it. And my best example is not even in the hotel business. All of you have Uber, right? All of you have Uber cab. I mean, this is amazing, right? They have taken all the pain out of getting a taxi, right? You still take them every day. You're still giving your money to the cab driver every day. But now it's kind of joyful, right? You get to rate the cab driver, he rates you. They found a pain point and fixed it. And I would say, if you have those areas where you think you've really nailed something and you feel real passionate about it, how do you bring that information to us rather than trying to sell us your whole portfolio of products? Because that we don't. It's hard. It's hard for you to get in the door that way.
Hi. This may be just a little off topic, but I thought Paige's comments sort of about the epiphany that you had with your son, that everybody that's got kids in their teens and 20s, you could probably have one every day. And so it was really about in-room entertainment, and I thought that was interesting. And the question I've got for I guess each of you is, how do we sort of balance investing in applications and investing in systems that may or may not ever be used by sort of up and coming people that are coming into the hotels, and not alienate people that may be a little bit older that are staying in the same properties? What do you do about OTT and IPTV in the same building? And I know if you're a Hyatt or a Marriott, you've got a lot of hotels where you've got the same types of people staying in those buildings. And so how do you balance? What do I do today for the millennials versus older segment of the population that are in my hotels?
I'll jump in. That's actually a key question. We have a guest experience in-room technology team, and that's really a crux of what we're struggling with right now, because we're looking at it as the big piece is the adoption of the personal equipment in the room. The guest brings their own stuff. How do you integrate that into the room experience? So to deal with the folks that are maybe less tech savvy, you have the basic TV experience, whatever you want in the room. But now for the millennials, the really tech-savvy people that want to plug in their Chromecast and they want to do all the other thing, how do you give them the option to do that at the same time as, without taking the option away from the other folks of how they deal with it? We're very sensitive to that because we know that's coming, and we try to make our hotel like you're going home. Well, the rate of change and the consumerization of technology is so fast that you kind of have to say, what's going to be the 3-year out solution, because that's what it's going to take you to get it there, or what is a quick win that you can do quickly? And so you're dead on about how do you do both, and we're struggling with that as we speak, but we think we're able to do the basics. The ideal thing for me is to have you bring your own device, I connect you to the internet, I let you splash it onto your television screen, that screen becomes a pane of glass, you can do whatever you want with it. I mean, these are all the things we're all thinking about. We're all looking to you guys for solutions around that. Technically, they're capable. Are they all integrated? Can they all work? Not yet. So it's, if you want to say that we're at an inflection point of this is going to be an ongoing decision we're all going to have to make on how we do it. And so part of the standards discussion was, what's the minimum you got to have for the guest? And then what do you have above that for those people that want to experience more? And it's a good question. We're working through that. So, anybody else?
Yeah. If I may, when you look at the just the video piece, Mark, the thing that amazes me with my kids is it's all about one channel, Netflix. If it's on Netflix, they know all about it. If it's not, then they don't know anything about it. But then you have the anomaly, my middle child. He doesn't watch Netflix. He doesn't like it. He just thinks that's just why. He's all about sports. You put NCAA on last weekend, and he's like, Dad, I'm gonna roll in the other TV, and I'm gonna have the tablet right here. And I'm like, and my wife is just like shaking her head, mini Richard. And for him, it's all about he wants to watch at the time live content. And I see that as that's what you just said, is how do you balance that all out? But then I'm gonna forget the video. I'm going to give you my 23-year-old nephew who went to Texas Tech, graduated with great honors, got a tremendous job at Lockheed Martin, and he was one of these that, he did everything on Facebook, and he was all about social media, and all of a sudden he starts working for a defense contractor. Guess what happened? He doesn't do anything on Facebook anymore. And he was Mr. I'm going to book all my travel with my phone, and he's like, Uncle Richard, they make me use this tool at work to book all my travel. And I'm not allowed to use Uber to get a taxi cab when I do travel. And I was like, welcome to the business world, nephew. Because that's what it's all about. And that, to me, is what the great balancing act is that ultimately it's in the middle of the road. You think back 20 years and you think back now, what's changed in travel. Some has, some hasn't, though. Certainly how we book airlines has certainly changed. But at the end of the day, I'm the same as him. I have to use a tool at work, and it drives me nuts because I'm like, there's so many other ways we could do this. Why do we have to use this one tool? But that's what we've decided. And that's to me what is the hardest thing. And you hit the nail on the head, Mark, is I don't really look at it so much as a generation or not the generation. It's just what are they going to conform to and what are they going to never conform to? And that's where, our job is, at times incredibly difficult. But I would think for you guys, it's extremely difficult because how do you know what is going to, what's the right path exactly? And it's a great question. And it's been, as somebody just said, you see it in your nieces and your nephews and your own kids that it's amazing what they have these big ideas and then they're just amazed when they get in the corporate world that they can't do what they wanted to do, and all of a sudden they're realizing, well, I can't really post all that stuff on Facebook because at the end of the day, my paycheck's from the government, and they don't want to see that on there. And guess what? He didn't leave his job; he conformed, and that's exactly what I told him he was going to do. You're going to conform because that's what we all did. But then there's other things I don't think they're going to conform on, and I think the Netflix is why I brought that one up to start with. I think my oldest son and my youngest daughter will always be all about Netflix. That's how they want to watch TV. That's all they watch. That's been ingrained in them. They're 16 and 11, and I think that's how they're always going to be. And when they come someday to Omni, I think that's what they're going to want to see, to exactly what Greg said. They're going to want their own content, and their own content is Netflix. And they want to watch it on that piece of glass, as Mike Blake said years ago. Okay, come on. Stop talking about a TV. It's a piece of glass, exactly what her son did. But it is, and for you guys, it's incredibly hard because at the end of the day, what is the path? What are we going to conform to, and what are we not going to conform to?
And I would say that the only thing we know we have to do well is the infrastructure in the building, right? So we can spend time in that space, even though we may not know ultimately what the right content is today. What's the right bet? I think it's a really tough one for us right now. We do have to do both sides. We have to be projecting forward, but 3 years, we don't even know what's going to be here in 3 years. It's moving so fast, and all of you are in the middle of that probably even more than we are, right? Because you are actually building your companies based on making the right decision on the technology. But We are continuing to invest with our owners and our partners in our buildings as much as we can, because we've got to be in a place where we can accept. And so we've got to make sure we've got the right fiber plants in place. And this is an old story for everyone in this room, but this is the one message I have out to our ownership groups. We're not going to stop talking about it because it is critically important. And the actual good news is their lives are being transformed by it personally, right? So all of us are impacted outside of work on the importance of technology. And I actually think it helps us as CIOs with our messaging. It doesn't necessarily mean it's an easy writing of a check, but your dialogue around the table is healthier because people have a lot more understanding about what your issues are than they ever have before. But that's the one thing we continue to focus on is the infrastructure in the buildings.
I'd love to hear what you guys are thinking about with, we talk about big data. My company kind of deals with that a little bit, Z-Direct, a few other companies here. Curious to see what your game plan is of kind of bringing it all together in the context of driving personalization, customization with communication to your guests and prospects, and how you're looking at intelligence across all of your systems and bringing it all together.
Big data, teenage sex. Right? Everyone's talking about it. Everyone's saying they're doing it. Those that are doing it aren't doing it very well. I got to tell you.
You're on video, remember?
Oh, oops. You can edit that section.
I don't care about the video. Let it roll.
All right, but it is one of those things that we're all talking about. We're not. No one I think has really embedded it within their decision structure. I know we haven't. I think there's some things that have to fall into place for us to even start looking at the data we have before we start even bringing the unstructured data within. So we're still tackling the structured data problem and reporting the structured data. But once we get there, I got a feeling it's going to come very quick. So this is one of those things that it's kind of, we do this a lot. Hurry up and wait, right? We say, hey, we need it. Then we wait for a long time. And then it's like, we need it like yesterday. And I think that's what's going to happen, is we're going to start hitting you with a blizzard of requests and start consuming, a lot of your services in a very fast fashion. So if you're looking at your quarterly projections and you're thinking, oh, am I going to sell this? Am I going to sell this? No, probably not. But then there will be that quarter where it'll be like, oh my God, what the hell just happened? This is great. I finally made bonus. So it'll happen.
Yeah, we're taking a step further towards the guest side of the house, in that you've got a bunch of information and a bunch of siloed systems right now. So you may have their stays, we have restaurant spend, these kinds of things, trying to get them together into one portfolio about that person so you can customize it. And because one of the best things I'd love to do is when somebody comes to the front desk and we see that they stayed at the last hotel and now they don't have a dinner reservation, can we make you a dinner reservation, right? Because we know you like our type of restaurants from all the data and history and stuff. So we're starting to, that's actually in my 2015 plan already, to do around the consolidation of data across the multiple platforms. If you guys can help in standardizing data formats, be very helpful, believe me, across all of you guys, so that we can pull this stuff out. So the data warehousing type thing, using BI tools on top of that, is going to be probably, as he said, it's going to come real quick. We're all going to decide, yeah, we got to do it tomorrow, because guess what? Paige just did it, so I got to do it too, right? And that's going to be coming quickly, but it's definitely the top of the radar screen, probably right below security, but it's up there.
I probably would have phrased it a little differently, but I tend to agree with Mike down there. But so I really, I don't know how much more I have to add. Other than the fact that I think as a company, we have to look internally as to how we want to use the data before we can even come out to you and say, here's what we want, here's how we want to even bring it together. And you all are close enough to our industry. We have lots of applications full of data, and the first thing we have to do is figure out what's important and how do we want to pull it together. So certainly from our perspective, we're in that place. But we're not done by any means. I don't know if we'll ever be done in this space, quite frankly.
Do we have time? One last one? Anyone? One last question, anyone?
How about a big thank you?